Hi there. Welcome to Days. Here, it's all about chatting like we're at home, cozy, with a cup of tea. I'm Days, and each time I bring in amazing guests from all over the world. Real, inspiring, and multilingual conversations are waiting for you. So grab a comfy spot and let's get started with a new episode. Hi guys, welcome back. Shit Days. I hope you are doing well. I'm really happy and excited to be with you today for this new episode. I'm really happy and really excited because the topic I want to talk about today is like really important for me. And I didn't expect to actually do this episode alone, but it just appeared to me that it could also work like that. And it's like a very personal, like thinking process, if I can put it that way. So everything started because I was listening myself to a podcast. The French podcaster, his name is Olivier, and I really like him, and I really like his content. I discovered his podcast after starting mine, and to be honest, like I hope in the future, my podcast will be as good as his. Like he's very much like a role model for me. Yeah, he always has like very interesting and inspiring guests. I will put like a link of his like to his podcast and or in his Instagram on the description. And so for the French speaking people here, probably would be like or not probably, it would definitely be very inspiring and very interesting. So in one of his last episode, his guest was Edgar-Yves. Edgar-Yves is a comedian. He is from Benin, if I'm not mistaken, and he's doing like a lot of very nice and interesting things. Has like projects and everything. He's quite funny. His sense of humor is very peculiar, but he's very funny. Like he also, apart from being funny, he also is invited in a lot of different kind of podcasts. And I have to say, he has a very fair and very clear sense of life. So everything this is just my opinion, of course. Yeah. So I can also like add his Instagram or in the description down below, and then for those of you who can also understand French, maybe this would be interesting for you. But like what led me to this episode is that in this conversation between Olivier and Edgar-Yves, he introduces himself and explains a little bit of his life, and his he actually just like tells his story. So when Edgar-Yves in his like early 20s decided to become a comedian, he had some, let's say, some problems, because he was born in a wealthy family. His father was a politician and very involved in the country. So his father had other plans for him, which I think was probably like to be a lawyer or something like that. I don't want to say anything wrong. So, but you guys can imagine like something similar. And because of his own desire and his own desire for his life, his father decided to throw him out of his house and to cut him off of his life. So this was for me the trigger point, if I can say it like that. So to put a little bit of context, Edgar-Yves says from himself that before that he was pretty much like a spoiled kid. He had like, there was like a pool in the house. He had like employees taking care of the house and everything. So he had money. Was not really like motivated to do, like he was not doing much, let's say. So at this point where he thinks that comedy could be something for him and tells his father that's his plan, this is like the end point for his father, and then he throws him out. For me, this leads to a very important question. At what point does it become so serious that a parent decides to throw their own child out? You know? I know everybody has their own standards, their own principles, their own ideas and values in life. But if I see it from my own perspective, I'm wondering what was for his father so triggering that he kind of decided, okay, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore, ever. At what point does a decision become so extreme that it completely breaks the parent-child bond? Because after this decision, Edgar-Yves had to sleep on the streets. He had to steal in supermarket to eat when he was hungry. So I am a bit confused, to be honest. So before that, guys, like let me be clear and completely transparent with you. I'm not a parent. Okay, I'm a very happy auntie, very involved. They're all my babies, but I'm not a parent. I am someone's child. So maybe my perspective is more of a child's perspective, yeah? So this will come from my perspective as a child and as an adult too. What is the role of a parent? Is it to guide your child, during life, or is it to control them? Do you give life to love or to dominate? I can't tell anyone this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. But let's be honest, like you have to somehow have your standards. So as I told you, this episode is very personal. So I will give you my own opinion and my own perspective. I think just because you are a parent doesn't give you the right to control whether this person, the child, will live or die, right? But I really have the feeling sometimes it is what it like parentality gives this impression of having 100% full control on the child's life, to the point where if the child doesn't follow the path you had for them, or doesn't work toward the goal or the goals you have for them, then it's a deal breaker. The problem is you made this deal alone. This was a deal you made alone. And this is also the whole point of becoming a parent. Becoming a parent is a contract you signed, but your child is not involved in this contract. You took a decision on your own. Your child has nothing to do with this contract. He's like the topic of the contract, maybe, but he didn't sign for anything. For those, maybe it could like ring a bell, but the contract you have actually is between you and God. God is like, okay, this is my treasure. Please take care of it. Let's say love them. And please make sure that the destiny I have for this child becomes reality. If you want to see it on a more spiritual way. But your child is not involved in the deal directly with you. You know, it's not like when you sign a contract with, I don't know, like a new employer or, I don't know, any kind of provider, let's say internet provider. You sign a deal with this person, with this company. Yeah. You sign, they sign, and then both parts agree. Yeah. But in this case, the child didn't sign anything. So how can something like a decision be such a deal breaker for you when the child didn't really sign for those conditions? So this is like the first point where I already think, it's not a good start. It's not this is not the fairest situation. Let's put it like that. There are a lot of expectations when you are a parent. I am fully aware that being a parent is not fair. It is not. It is not easy. It is a very ungrateful job to be a parent because everything is on you and you don't always get as much as you think you deserve or as you wish you'd receive. I really understand that 100%. I'm fully aware of it, but it is still not your child's problem. I'm wondering if there is not like a confusion between respect and domination. I respect you. I have respect for you. It doesn't mean that it gives you the right to dominate me and have control of my life. I respect your experience. I acknowledge it. But it doesn't mean that you are almighty, and that you know everything above everything. And that discussion is not a discussion, or like the fact that maybe you could be mistaken about a topic, In the case of Edgar-Yves, I'm just wondering if it's worth it as a parent is it easy for them to like sleep at night? Like imagining or thinking Where is my child? Is um are they okay? Like, and especially like the situation, it was like a 14 years like break, between those two. So what I often hear in such a case where I'm like, maybe it's important to define what respect is, and what you expect from your child, and also like um what like what does a child expect from their parent. I think this is also very important to talk about, because expectations towards children is often very clear, but the other way around is as important, and they are not really expressed. How many of you who are like parent have already asked their child, what do you expect from me as a parent? Maybe this would be like interesting to to think about, to like just try and then see what comes. I don't know. But my point is, often this topic or this idea of respect is like just goes one way. You owe me respect because I am your parent. You owe me respect because I am older. You owe me respect because I have so much experience in life that this must be paid back somehow, like this, as if like, just like in a video game. Like the further you go in the video game, the more, golden coins you get. And then at the end of the game, then you have like a huge treasure, like worth whatever, like, I don't know, many millions of like, of golden coins. I have the feeling this is like comparable to like some people's definition of respect. But when does it occur that people say you owe your child respect? And I would bet on that if you tell this to some people, they would be offended. If you tell some elders, you owe your children respect, those people would be offended. But from my perspective, respect has nothing to do with your age or your experience in life. Respect has to do with the fact that you're human. That's it. That's the reason why I would like go back to go back to the basics and then ask some people, what is your definition of respect? Maybe it's more of an interpretation than like an actual definition. I don't know. So this creates, from my perspective, something unbalanced in this relationship. It's like some kind of a double standards. Of course, for most of us, our parents did so much. They went through like a lot. They had to sacrifice some of their own life, their own dreams, projects, their freedom. Just like this ability to just say, okay, today I'm tired. I just stay in my own room, not talking to anyone. I don't feel like doing anything. I will just stay there. It's not possible anymore if you have a child. Yeah. Some parents went through like so much. I'm thinking about especially parents who had to migrate in like different countries, especially countries that are like culturally so different from their home countries. This is like very, very difficult. Sometimes you have to learn a new language, new culture, new habits, new system. You have to go through problems, probably racism. You don't know how to integrate. It is like very, very difficult. Sometimes you had like a good position and a good job, a good life in your home country, and then you start from zero in your new country because people don't really acknowledge what you are, what you did. This is very difficult and very frustrating. I can't even tell or even imagine how horrible it is if on top of that you had to the journey to this new country was difficult. Like there are like so many different stories that are like, oof, you don't know you don't know like what the people went through and like the traumas it caused. But I think as a child, if I knew a little bit or if I knew my parents' story and knew why they had to go through to manage to give me like the life that I have, my heart would be full of gratitude, of love, of admiration. But this everything that, I owe my parents so much, they went through so much, would like have the roots of love. It wouldn't be like a question of domination. I owe my parents my life because this was not my choice. I don't have anything to do with this decision. Even if, and let me put it like a little bit like, even, let me put the point a bit further. Even if let's say for a child that is already born in a country with problems, let's say, and then the parents decide to go they have to flee in another country, and the parents go through a lot and everything, and they manage to get the child themselves and the child and like all of them as a family in a safe and good place. The gratitude I would have as a child would come from love. My parents loved me so much that they went through like hard and horrible things to get me a better life. And this would lead to even more love. Okay, my parents did so much. I want, out of love, also to give this back if I can, to show gratitude. This is much different than they have control over my life. They can decide what is good, what is good for me because they are like my parents. This is not about domination. This is not about control. So if I don't match their idea of a good future, this is not a condition for their love. Because my question is, are you as a parent going to love me less because the path I want for my life is different from the one you expected and imagined for my life? The whole mm, the whole thing of you owe me respect because I suffered for you doesn't make any sense. The whole thing of you owe me because I suffered for you, because of everything I went through for you, makes no sense because this was your choice. We glorify parenthood as a sacrifice, but then in return, there is an expectation of total obedience. Submission? So do you have kids do you consider your kids are your servant, employees? You don't even expect total obedience from your employees. So what is it with their kids? So to go back to the example of Edgar-Yves, at some point his father reached out to him after 14 years, and they started to reconnect. And at this time he was already famous, or like on the way of like becoming very famous, like some of his work was coming out and everything. And I don't know, I'm not talking about like the whole of like his like situation. I'm just seeing my perspective on different similar stories. Until the parents, until the child succeed, he like they get like no validation from their parents. In the case of Edgar-Yves, he was told that his father was like knew his work and like was watching everything he was doing, and that he was very proud. And that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, I know I know a lot of artists, either comedian, musicians, all those kind of like people with like especially in the Black community, that said, I wanted to prove to my parents that I could make it and everything, so I worked twice as hard. And for me, it's always sound, I don't know, off. odd because especially like those people I think of are all French. And so to be a Black French man in this environment, you have to work probably like 100 times harder than another artist or a French white artist to prove yourself and everything. And on top of that, you have to work even harder to prove your worth to your parents. I don't have to prove anything to my parents. They don't have to agree with my career choices, with my life choices. That's okay. But I don't think that's my job to sweat so much when life is already quite like hard enough to prove them something. Again, they don't have to agree with my decisions. And maybe they're right. And maybe the choice for my career that I'm about to make was not the smartest. But still, I really don't have to prove anything to my parents. I'll try my way. If I don't want to listen to them, I will either succeed or fail. And if I do fail, then it's on me. And I will go back on track and then try something different. If I have to work twice as hard just to prove I made the right choice, that's not love. I treasure your experience, your advices, your wisdom. But my life is mine to live. I'll take your advice, but I will not carry your ego. And if you want my opinion, I think for a parent to throw their child out because they do not want to follow the path they have for them is like to do with ego and not for love. So my question is, when did ego become bigger or more important than love? Maybe in some communities, being a parent mean that you have this superiority, and not in a sense that the respect you have for elders and everything, which I value a lot. But really, I am your superior. Just do as I say. And that's it. And I can imagine the definition or interpretation is different from one person to the other. In some of the previous generations, our parents or grandparents' generation, they had to struggle a lot. And they had to everything, but a lot was very difficult. Some of our parents stayed in this survival mode, where everything has to be difficult. You have to work hard. You have to struggle. Working hard is actually something I value. The the worth of hard work, hard labor, like you have to fight and be active to achieve what you want and get what you want, because life is hard. So you have to really just work for it. However, there's something there is like a saying that I really like, is like, work smart, not hard. And maybe it's difficult to understand for some people in the older generation. But sometimes it is true. Sometimes it works. And I would even say, when God opens like free the way, then things can be very easy. And so your achievement, some of your achievement, is not acknowledged as such because you didn't struggle to reach that goal, which is very interesting, because the whole idea of their sacrifice was for you to have it easier. So I think it's very important to not fantasize struggle and hustle and everything. Hard work, hard labor is, from my perspective, something very valuable, something that I value. I know that hard work pays off, and that you get a lot from it, that you learn a lot from it as well. But it doesn't have to be hard and difficult to be worth it and to see the value of the fruit like that you get. So because of this survival mode that they are still in, they kind of like feel they have to reproduce this like authoritarian model. And if you don't follow, then maybe you fail, or you're seen as a failure. I don't know. I was talking about it with like someone, and then they told me, this is also our job as like the next generation, to show them that there are like different ways, that they always have to struggle because they had to work all the time. There was like no space for them for recreation, for leisure, for having it a little bit, easier to take like some personal time, self-care and everything. That it's probably our job and our role as the next generation, as children and everything, to show them the way somehow in taking care of themselves and relax, and or let's say make them aware that like there are different ways. And I found it interesting, actually, and I think that's actually true. It is probably our job too, because like, don't get me wrong, like you hear me like grumble and complain about the whole situation. But I'm aware too that we also have a role to play in the parent child dynamic, that we also have something to do, that we also have our some responsibilities too, that we can help and guide in our way, and also show, and of course show understanding, patience, and everything. Don't get me wrong, me saying all that doesn't mean that we should be stubborn in our position and not show our parents or our elders some understanding and kindness and patience and everything. It is not what I mean. Because our job as the next generation is to try to make things a little bit different and to try different ways to see if it could also work, but this was very interesting for this person to make me realize, maybe it's also our job to show them that they don't have to struggle anymore, that life can also be a bit easier, and they don't have to stay in this survival mode, that they can lose it a bit. They might never had this opportunity to learn how to love without control and without conditions. This is also, they will probably also learn with us, because there is a saying, I guess that's the same in a lot of languages, but you cannot give what you didn't receive, right? If, as the next generation, we are aware of those things, then maybe it's our job to give this back to our parents, and give them the reassurance that there are different ways, that they also can be kind to themselves and kind with others, and they can be just more flexible and more open to the world. So in the case of Edgar-Yves, the reconciliation came late. I hope I don't say anything stupid, but they reconnected 3 years before his father passed away. And in those 3 years, they didn't manage to meet in person. They talked on the phone, FaceTime and everything, video called, but they didn't manage to meet in person. So, I know those situations happen in a lot of families. And he grew a lot through this situation, because he says it himself that he learned how to go through adversity. He learned resilience. He grew so much and learned so much about it. He learned hard work, that when you hit rock bottom, then you have to go back up on your own. And of course, this is like very, how can I say, useful. This is like, it brings a lot. Of course, you learn differently in through adversity. Yeah. So I mean, the Edgar-Yves says himself that if he had stayed comfortably in his parents' or his father's house, probably he would have become like a different person. Um, and we don't like deny that, like the growth that you get through difficult times. What I find regrettable, though, is the time lost. Maybe to sit with his son and talk things through. Maybe sitting with his son and talk things through and try to find with him a way or solution would also have been something that could have worked. 14 years is a lot, is a long, long time. And of course, on his hand, it's like there's been a lot of healing and a lot of thinking, a lot of the process. And it got him, um, he says it himself that like, knowing that his father was proud of him is like now his biggest strength and like source of energy. Because he said that the people around his father would tell him how much he would follow his work, watching his videos, read articles about him, and that he was proud. But it took him 15 years. And at the end of the interview of the podcast, he said something very, very funny, is that he has now a new definition of being mad at someone. The definition is, if you are mad at someone, it means that if the person would die tomorrow and you'd be okay with it, then okay, go ahead. But if the person dies tomorrow and you wouldn't be okay with it, if you had like regret and everything, then just don't waste any time. Just like call and do the right thing. I agree with him, 100%. My question is, if this break doesn't come from you, how do you deal with that? How do you go back to someone? Like, it's not about like your ego. Yeah. It's not about your ego. Your heart is open, but the other person rejected you. How do you go back to this person? I don't know, but like this was like an extra like question, like it's not really in the topic that we're talking. It's not really in the same topic, but I really admire the process, and that he found peace, and and in love and healing, despite the situation. This is, like, I think, like the most important thing. And he said that this got him back and closer to his roots. So yeah. Maybe my question for you today is, like, have you ever felt like you had to prove you deserved your parents' love? This is a very, I think, interesting question, and please do not hesitate to answer either here in the comments, or we can definitely also interact on Instagram at Days. Yeah, I'll be really happy to talk further about it with you guys. So yeah, that's the end of this episode. I'm really, really happy, and I cannot wait for you to tell me what your thoughts are on this topic. Thank you so much for listening. Please comment and rate the podcast. Let me know what you think, and then I will see you very soon for a new episode of Days. Bye bye.